Let's turn to the Middle East now, where Israel and Hamas are being pressed to accept a ceasefire proposal outlined by President Biden. The US says they have every expectation that Israel will accept a ceasefire proposal that would begin with a cessation of hostilities for 6 weeks in Gaza, a surge of humanitarian aid and an exchange of some hostages for Palestinian prisoners. As pressure grows, so does the fighting in Gaza. Palestinian media reporting a series of Israeli airstrikes on refugee camps on Sunday, in which they say about 20 people were killed. Fida Al-Araj is in Rafah, and she told us about the current situation there.
The situation in Rafah is unbelievably horrific. I can't really describe it in words. Hundreds of thousands of people are displaced yet again, like we were displaced to Rafah. People are going back to places that has no water, no facilities, no access whatsoever, but they are fleeing literally for their lives. In terms of food, like the markets are better than other days. However, the prices are still super high. The access to cash liquidity is extremely difficult. The use of banking apps or banking transfers is also not an option because of difficulties in telecommunication and internet access. So even if we have a little bit more food than usual in the markets, it's still extremely difficult to get. When you ask me about the ceasefire proposal, to be super honest, I stopped caring. I stopped following these news. For me, it's just another proposal in a series that has failed so far. Because to be honest, it seems that all the world put together fails to hold Israel accountable, or even less, to just manage to stop them from what they're doing here. I'm concerned that I will not have a future to be worried about at all.
So that gives you an idea of daily life in Rafah at the moment. But nonetheless, this ceasefire proposal is on the table now. Here's the view of what needs to happen for that to progress from our international editor, Jeremy Bowen.
Well, they have to say, yeah, we'll do the deal. But also there are a lot of granular details that they would have to go through, like, for example, the ratio of released hostages to prisoners, what kind of prisoners, what might they have done, and what sort of hostages as well, old people and women, including female soldiers, those sorts of calculations. The proposal that Biden laid out, which he said, of course, and it's been repeated by his officials, that it's an Israeli proposal, is what he said, is in there are 6-week blocks, basically, where this would happen. Now, of course, the issue is the politics on both sides, whether it's acceptable or not. The Hamas have always said they're fine with a ceasefire as long as the ceasefire means the war is over, period, and Israel gets out of the Gaza Strip. And from the Israeli point of view, since Biden made his speech, the Prime Minister's office has made it clear that what they're concerned about is sticking with their objectives, which is the dismantling and destruction of Hamas as a political and military force. And that, of course, as an objective has been criticized, because how do you actually define all of that? And as well as that, one other thing, of course, it's the Israeli political dimension, which is that Mr. Netanyahu is reliable, his government depends on the votes of extreme Jewish ultra-nationalist parties who made it clear that they're not at all interested in these kinds of deals. In fact, what they want to do is even go in there, set up a government in Gaza and settle Jews in a lot of the territory as well.
To pick up on one of those points then, Jeremy, when you hear Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, he's been speaking in the past hour or so, backing up Mr. Netanyahu, saying we'll not accept the rule of Hamas in Gaza at any point, at any stage. Does that mean that the ceasefire is just a non-starter, when that's the perspective of Mr. Netanyahu?
Well, that phrase non-starter has been used by his office in the context of their wider objectives. Yes, Israel's prepared to have a ceasefire once we've managed to, they would say, destroy Hamas's rule in Gaza. And from the Hamas point of view, they know that in this kind of asymmetric warfare between a powerful state and a militia group, victory from the militia group is survival. And it's the fact that they're still there at the very end of things. And the point being made by a lot of observers, including in an interview that's come up today with the former Prime Minister, former Army Chief of Staff, former Defense Minister, Ehud Barak. He said, look, Israel's saying that when they've done Rafah, that'll be it. He said, no, it won't be it. They'll have to send troops elsewhere into the Gaza Strip. The point is that it turned into an insurgency, or is turning into an insurgency. In other words, there will be men with Kalashnikovs and rocket-propelled grenades popping out of holes in the ground, perhaps for months, firing them at Israelis. And the fact they can fire them is what, for them, counts as resistance and a continuing fight. And for Israel, might count as not fully eradicating Hamas. The close allies of the Prime Minister have said that this might go on for the rest of the year or longer.
Jeremy, what's your view of America's influence right now and President Biden? You made the point that he has said, this is an Israeli proposal, obviously trying to put some more pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu there. But where do you think he's at with this?
Well, I think Biden's quite conflicted because his instincts are to back Israel to the hilt, but he has an appalling relationship, like other American presidents, particularly Democrats, have had with Benjamin Netanyahu. From the very beginning, he's been offering them advice. He said, look, America's got your back. We will back you up. And they've been doing that, sending over vast amounts of weaponry, plus absolutely invaluable diplomatic protection in the UN Security Council, vetoing resolutions calling for ceasefires, for example. And at the same time, Netanyahu basically has not been taking his advice because he calculates that he can speak over the head of the president to Israel's allies, of which there are many in the US Congress. But Biden's problem is it's an election year, and the polls are saying that in what will be a close election, he's losing vital votes because of what's seen as a support of Israel that's gone above and beyond what America should have done for one of its allies, that Israel, the critics would say, has sacrificed the moral high ground it might have had on the 7th of October, and that Mr. Biden, by continuing on one hand to say, look, don't use these very heavy weapons in civilian areas, and then on the other hand, transporting loads more heavy weapons, 2,000-pound bombs and the like, to the Israelis, that his protestations therefore seem unconvincing and hollow. But I think the time has come now. He said himself in that speech, he said, look, this war has got to end. And the argument, he said there will be people in Israel who won't agree with this, but the argument that he makes is that Hamas cannot do another 7th of October attack. And so that should be it. But from Netanyahu's problem, apart from the fact that he might lose his coalition over it, which for him is a big, big deal, he's defined victory as the eradication of Hamas. And if they stop now, well, clearly, with the senior leadership of Hamas in Gaza still at liberty, and with their fighters opening up on Israeli soldiers when they get the opportunity, then clearly Hamas is still there.